ways in which different substances will create substances, the ways by which we develop
Our today's guest is Anna Dobrota from Faculty of Physical Chemistry of the University of Belgrade. Anna, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me who is Anna Dobrota?
Oh, starting with the difficult questions. I like it. Well, she's a scientist who is very into sustainability and environmental issues, and also connecting it all with electrochemistry and daily life. So, yeah.
So, first of all, congratulations on winning the National Award for Women in Science.
Thank you.
Can you share with us something about this award, how this impacted your career and motivation?
Yes, this is an award that is given by L'Oréal UNESCO Foundation every year and in many countries. So I am the 2023 winner in Serbia, actually one of 3 winners. And it's basically let's call it a competition for women who are young women in science. And we apply with some projects, and then they are evaluated, and in the end, somebody is awarded. Yeah. So my project was regarding metal-ion batteries, as the hot topic, one of the hot topics in electrochemistry these days. And yeah, it got the award. So it had a very big impact, but I'm expecting it will show itself more in the future. But the impact is mostly the attention to our research and bringing the attention of everyday public to some important topics in science and how they are connected to everyday life and how they can actually improve every person's life.
Can you expand more about the research interests and specific areas that you work on?
Yeah, I actually work in computational materials science, which is basically material science not done by experiments, but by computational calculations. Yeah, tools. So basically, you can have 2 approaches in every science. So you can do experiments. So you have to try something out and see if it's going to work. Of course, you have some reasons to believe it will or won't, but it's basically try and fail or try and succeed. And it can be very expensive when you work that way in the lab. But computational methods allow you to save some money and to first have some, let's call it an educated guess, what will be good for a given application. So the application that I'm interested in is mostly electrochemical applications for example, metal-ion batteries, which I already mentioned. So like the lithium-ion battery, which you have in your laptop probably, and so on. But nowadays we're turning to new metals instead of lithium because they can be cheaper, more environmentally friendly, and it's just easier.
So you said computational. How much do you rely on the AI models? Do you use them?
For now, not really, but it's definitely going to happen soon because it's kind of omnipresent right now. Yeah. So up until now, I did not use them, but it's becoming inevitable, definitely. And except for the batteries, I also deal with with green hydrogen applications. So we're trying to investigate some new materials which will be good for making green hydrogen and kind of switching to green energy more.
Talking about that, what's the scalability of the solutions made in lab in a real world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, of course, we always start very small. For example, when I start with my computational model, I start on the atomic level. So that's super small, like 10 to the minus 10th of the meter in size. But of course, for industrial uses, it has to be scalable.
Yeah.
So we do start with basic models, but we always try to expand to some, let's say, first lab work, which is, of course, bigger than the atomic computational models. And then if we get some good results, and we actually do have some very good results regarding the hydrogen production, we're now working on the scale up. So it's going well, but of course it has its challenges. It's not as easy as to make it very small.
How do you see theoretical calculations complementing experimental research and advance in understanding the materials?
Oh, I think that's an everlasting love.
Oh.
I think you have to have both. So from one side, you should definitely have like the experiment and show that it works in practice, of course. But if you don't really understand why it works, it's not so good for your follow-up research, right? So if it just works, but you have no idea why, you don't know in which direction to go further. And here what we do usually, if we have some material, let's say, that is very promising for some application, for hydrogen production or for some battery electrode, if we see in the lab it's very good, we're like then interested to see why. And then computational methods come in and they allow us to see like the fine tuning of why it works so well or not. So then we can just maybe change the concentration of some dopant atom in the material, or maybe the level of oxidation of the material, and that can have a huge impact on the applicability later. So yeah, the computations really help out.
On the side of materials, what really is most promising for the future?
Well, I must say graphene is a good candidate. Yeah, I work mostly with graphene-based materials. So graphene is pretty ideal when you look at its basic structure. But actually, that's not ideal at all for electrochemistry. It's actually very bad for electrochemistry because it's too ideal. It won't interact with anything, and we need it to interact with some metal ions or whatever the application is. So actually, we mostly deal with graphene-based materials, which are maybe oxidized graphene or doped graphene. And yeah, it depends what you have on its surface. It can change the properties a lot. Of course, graphene is not the only one, but it's definitely one of the big players now.
So what are some of the challenges you face in utilizing graphene in electrochemical applications?
Yeah, well, there is always the question of stability, of course, and the degradation of the material when it's used for long periods of time. And of course, the scale up, as we mentioned. Yeah, it can work well in the lab, but it can be really problematic to scale it up to some, let's say, industrial level. So we have some challenges there, and we're always working on it.
So with your expertise in electrochemical systems, how do you envision the role of these systems in addressing global energy challenges?
Yeah, I think that will be very important. I think we're all kind of addicted to energy when you think about it. Yeah. We all have our phones, our computers, everything is basically now online and electronic, right? So I think we have to find a solution because the needs for the energy are growing every day. And the solutions are not coming so fast so that they can follow this raising need of the energy. So yeah, it will definitely have a huge impact. And it already started. Like we have some hybrid cars, right? Or some completely electric cars. But it will go further, definitely. Now you can see in like if you travel a little bit and you look at some village, you will see a lot of solar panels on the rooftops. Or, I mean, even in the smaller cities already. So, for example, in Serbia, we do have it somewhere, but not so much. You can't really see it in like normal households. But yeah, it's definitely growing.
So in your research, how much are you exposed to the real world applications of your solutions?
Yeah, I start from, I'm basically the atomic guy. Yeah. So I don't really work in the lab. I work with the computational models. Mostly, but I don't ever do it without trying to connect it somehow to a possible application. So it's all a collaboration. Like you mentioned, we do have theory from one side and experiments from the other side. And you can look at experiments also like lab experiments and then scale up for the application. So I'm on the first side with the computational models and like predicting and the designing which materials and why will be good for some use. But of course, I always collaborate with my colleagues who work in the lab, and then we try to combine our results and to have good material, which will be very useful for this application we choose, but also we know why it works. And then we go further. We always take it one step further to improve it more.
Is there commercial interest for your work?
Well, I must admit there wasn't much. We mostly worked on scientific projects, which are funded usually by the Science Fund of the Republic of Serbia or maybe some international grants and so on, but they were strictly scientific. There was no stepping out of it and moving to the industry. But lately, there has been some interest in the hydrogen production, and actually, that's one of our main fields now, where we can maybe move a little bit towards the industry.
How do you balance responsibilities between teaching and research, and how do they complete each other?
It can be tough. It can be really tough because on one side, you have to follow every day what's new in the research area where you work and read a lot of papers. I think when non-scientific people scroll through social media and stuff, we scroll through what's new in the science world. We read papers and so on. I have this feeling. So yeah, it can be really tough because for example, I do some teaching. I have my lessons in several courses, and then I also have my projects where I worked as a researcher. And then it can be hard to weigh out what's more important in the given moment. I usually work one half here, one half there, in the meaning that during one semester I have a lot of classes, and then I'm more focused on my students and less on the science. I do follow, but I can't do it that much. And then in the other semester, when I have less classes, I can really focus and use the ideas which I gathered during the first one to now work on it.
So you're working with the organizer of the regional symposium on electrochemistry. Can you tell us a bit more about the conference?
Yeah, it's a really great conference. Actually, this is the first time I'm attending and helping organize it, but I always hear about it, and it's a really good way to connect and spread your network of electrochemists of this region, but also we have some guests who are from further away. Yeah, so all over the world, basically. So we have about 150 participants this year from all over the world, really. And we have, I think, 26 countries in total. Yeah. So it's very interesting. A lot of good lectures, a lot of people with a lot of expertise, which can be passed on. And it's really great way to you hear something, then in the breaks you can talk to people, maybe find some way to collaborate. It's really, really interesting. And yeah, this conference happens every 2 years, I think starting from 2008. So yeah, it's really progressing nicely.
Anna, thank you for being my guest today.
You're welcome. Thank you.